Hi everyone and welcome for this new tutorial how to paint the Assault veterans from the game Songs of Ice and Fire, the tabletop miniatures game. So we are going to see how to paint the red, a dark non-metallic metal, the skin, and a little bit of gold non-metallic metal. So don't hesitate to subscribe to the channel, to like this tutorial, and to post comments to tell me what do you want for the next tutorial. Let's go for the paint. So before I start, I prime my miniatures in black, and after that I push a little bit of white to push my first highlight. And now I push my basic color for my red, who will be some red leather. This is something like a red brown, who will be perfect to be my base for some red color. I always use the side of my brush to reach the larger zone I can in the few number of movements with my brush. And when this base is done, it's going to look like that. So after that I push my first highlight with some dragon red from Army Painter. I focus every time I push my color, I focus on the light, the more light part. And the Army Painter color is pretty easy to make some good transition. So I just have to take it just out of the bottle and to put on the good place. And don't hesitate to make it 2 or 3 times. Always by reaching a smaller and smaller surfaces to create your transition. As you can see now, I make a second layer of red, but I reach smaller surfaces to create my transition. And now I come back with some pure red, every time by reaching a very smaller and smaller surfaces. This is a very important point, to have something perfectly clean with a nice transition. These miniatures is pretty easy and fun to paint, so I discovered this during the Kickstarters 1 year ago, I think, something like that. And yeah, for sure, I think it's going to be a pretty cool miniatures game. So I will make you some tutorial during the next months. Don't hesitate to support me on Patreon, so you can see more video tutorial to improve the different model. For example, I'm going to show how to paint the mountain with some more steps to show how to improve and have a better effect at the end. As you can see, more I paint and less I reach large surfaces, so I push a second step with my pure red. The most important things is always to paint and to try some new techniques. It's always the best things. So now I come back with some dark sea blue just into the shadow. So don't hesitate to dilute a lot to your dark sea blue because it's a very covering color. So more you are going to dilute, more the result will be clean. So dilute a lot. It's really, really important. I push this color into the recesses and into the most important shadow on the red. Always try to take care about your previous step. Never push your paint on the light, for example, because we are going to do the shadow right now. So it's always important to preserve your last step and to always have a better and better transition. The technique is similar than when I push the lights on the minis, and more I'm going to push my color, and more the surfaces I'm going to reach is smaller and smaller. Now I come back with some orange on the edges to push a little bit more my highlight. You need to focus on very small surfaces just to be sure your red is not going to be totally orange. It's pretty important. And focus on just some lines, some points, and after we will come back with a little bit of ivory into our orange to have a little bit more highlights, and that will be the last step for our red. As you can see, on the flag, I don't hesitate to push a little bit more highlight. And now my last step is to add a little bit ivory into my orange to push my last highlight. As you can see, the treatment of red can be pretty simple. It's something like 5 or 6 different steps, but you just have to take your time to make it and to focus about always reaching a smaller and smaller surfaces. That's the most important point. And about your dilution, you always need to have a dilution whose consistency is like milk, and you can see just under your paint the last paint you already put. So it's done for the red. I really hope you enjoyed this step. So we will continue with the non-metallic metal with some very simple steps. Don't hesitate to ask your question into the comments and to tell me what will be your favorite miniatures in this range. So I will take care and try to make it in my next tutorial. So I continue with some dark tone. You can make it with some strong tone too. It will be less dark non-metallic metal, but you can do it. So now I'm going to push this wash into all the different non-metallic parts just to push my first shadow. This is not a very complicated step, but it's important to push a lot. As you can see, I put that on every part of my armor. And now I come back with some black to push all parts who will be at the end in some non-metallic gold. And by the way, I push, in the same time, my shadow into the non-metallic metal. It's pretty important to do that. Sometimes it's more easy for me to show you first the light, so with white, but this time I make it in this direction, so you can make the shadow and after the light, or the light and after the shadow. That don't change a lot. With non-metallic metal, you can see a lot of tutorial on my YouTube channel if you want, but once again, it's always the same things. So you are going to push your shadow in one direction, and on the other face, we will be just near the first two faces, you are going to push the shadow in the directly opposite direction. So it's pretty more easy on swords, on very basic surfaces, but you can see we will do on the armor, on the different kind of armor, so you will see the different kind of effect. So now I come back with some white. Look, every time I push my edges in white, even if this edge is into the shadow, I push everything in white. So that's pretty important. And after I will come back with black and white and black and white again and again to have a very contrasted effect. We will simulate the metallic effect. This method is pretty interesting for many reasons. The first one is for you to find a good way to dilute in the best way your paint, because when you paint non-metallic metal, you need all kind of different dilution. When I make my edges in white, I don't dilute too much to have a very strong white. When I make my transition, I dilute a lot to have a perfect transition. And by the way, you are going to use all kind of dilution. So that's pretty interesting to make some non-metallic metal for all this kind of reason. As you can see on the torso, I'm going to push some line and some points of white all around the armor to simulate the different reflection of light, and that's pretty cool to do, because you are going to have the control in which direction you are going to push some lines, some points to create this illusion. So don't hesitate at this moment to take a look to some pictures of real armor, or to just take care about your instincts. Don't hesitate to try, but one important thing is you are going to have a very important contrast between your different color. So that's the most important things. So if you want to make non-metallic metal, you need white, you need black, and you need contrast. So more you are going to push contrast, more your effect will be pretty interesting and realist. So don't hesitate to push yourself to go into a lot of contrast. That's why the non-metallic is pretty interesting, because you are going to push the contrast into a very into the limit. So I use some black color just to push once again my my contrast and to create better transition, and after I come back with some white again to put some points of ivory on some few parts to create a very strong contrast on all the parts I can. And I'm going to make the same on different parts of the armor of the figurine, of the miniatures. So I'm going to push every time. It's always the same things. Every time the edges, and after into the different armor, I'm going to push some line and some point. Don't hesitate to, as I always say, push a like on the video. That's pretty important for me. And don't hesitate to subscribe to my Patreon, to subscribe to the channel, to have more and more information. If you subscribe to my Patreon, so you support me every month, and you have some special video in exchange, and you have access to a special painting group, so you can show me your stuff, show me your minis, and I will make you some feedback every time I can. So don't hesitate. That can be a really good point to evolve into your paint. So I push again and again my highlights. Here is a result when I finish my non-metallic metal. These miniatures present a lot of different kind of surfaces for the non-metallic metal. So if you have this kind of miniatures into your collection, don't hesitate and make it. You are going to learn a lot. Now I start my laser parts with some Furburn. I'm going to push on the basical black color. So I'm going to preserve my black parts. I'm trying to preserve my black parts to be my first shadow, and I push my fur brown as first highlight. So don't hesitate to use it like that. That's pretty interesting because Army Painter color is pretty cool to make your transition. Don't hesitate in the comments to tell me if you have some question about the techniques, because sometimes my English is not pretty perfect. So don't hesitate to tell me if you have any kind of question. So now I come back with some gray into my fur brown, and this gray is going to be my first highlight. After, I'm going to push more and more gray into my fur brown to create more and more contrast, and I will finish by using just some wash to create more shadow into the recesses, and after I will finish with a small point of dark sea blue to push my last shadow. That's going to push more deep effects into my my red leather. So I'm going to mix some ivory into my fur brown for my second highlight. You always can, on the thumb laser, you always can push a little bit more highlights. You can, if you think it's too much, you can always come back with some layer, with some diluted color to create, to remove a little bit your light. So it's never a bad idea to push a little bit more highlights than you want. You always can come back and remove that after. So now, as you can see, I push my directly a little bit of ink into my recesses, and after that will be totally dry. I will come back to push a little bit more shadow with some dark sea blue. This step to make the leather is pretty easy, and as you can see, it's going to complete perfectly the total of my miniatures. They are going to have two more steps, so the face and the hair, and the non-metallic metal, but in gold this time. So for the face, it's pretty simple because I am going to go with some barbarian flesh on the face and with some desert yellow on the hair. And after, step by step, I'm going to push again and again my highlights, just by adding step by step a little bit of ivory into my basical color. So for the hair, I use some desert yellow from Army Painter. So now I'm going to add a little bit more ivory into my basical color, and I am going to push my second highlights on the face. So my first highlight, because the basical colors was barbarian flesh, just pushing like that on the face. After that, I'm going to make a very small wash of flesh wash from Army Painter, just all around the faces, just to be sure that I'm going to have more shadow into the face, but it's very light. And now I come back just with some point of ivory just to finish the highlights on the face. After that, I'm going to start by pushing more highlights on the hair, and for that I'm going to make some line directly on the hair by adding a little bit ivory in first into my desert yellow, and in second time just directly by using some ivory directly on the hair and just some points. So as you can see, that's the first step. I am just adding a little bit ivory into my desert yellow just to push my first highlight. So I push that like some line, and now I push a second time just with ivory to push once again the highlight on the hair. So you can see the results easily. So step by step I move, and it's pretty soon to be finished. And the next step will be the gold non-metallic metal. The first step is pretty easy because it's just some golden yellow from Prince August I use to push my highlight directly on the black color. The black color is a very very dark blue, so by using directly some yellow, my transition will be a little bit green. So I push my color, and that creates this kind of effect. Don't hesitate by using and by trying different kind of yellow. It's always a good exercise. But as you can see, more I'm going to push my color, more I'm going to have a very very strong yellow, and more the non-metallic, the gold non-metallic effect will be very good. I'm going after that to make it again one time, just on a smaller surfaces to create my transition, and after I am going to push a little bit point of white just to create this non-metallic effect. As you can see, this is my second step directly with the same yellow, just by pushing some points, some more strong color on some few points to have a very great contrast. After that, I come back just with some ivory to push once again my contrast and to have my last highlights on my non-metallic metal gold. I really hope you enjoyed this painting tutorial. Don't hesitate to subscribe to the channel, to push a small like, and to follow me on Facebook, Instagram. Don't hesitate to follow me on Patreon too. So as I explained, I'm going to show you different way to improve your the quality of your miniatures, and you will integrate a Facebook special page so you can show me your stuff. I will make you some feedback, and you will have some advice. So don't hesitate to paint. Find the time to paint, and see you soon.